Apex Online Racing is sponsored by Elgato, who created this lovely Stream Deck. For more information about the Stream Deck, the link is in the description below.
Good evening everybody and welcome back to round number 3 of AOR Hype Energy Season 16 on the PS4. Tonight the drivers will be taking to the Shanghai International Circuit, which normally offers up a feast of racing with plenty of overtaking opportunities throughout a lap, which is taken at full throttle for 56% of its 5.5 kilometer distance. Last time out in Bahrain we were treated to a stunning race under the lights with overtaking up and down the order, and I have no doubt that tonight will provide us with more of the same. I'm AliK17 and joining me in the commentary box this evening, as always, is GamingAlimonda.
Thank you very much, AliK17. Yes, as you mentioned, that race at Bahrain, what a classic that was. Right to the end, there was action all over the place. And given the characteristics of this Shanghai International Circuit, I'm sure we're going to be in for another great race here tonight.
I have to agree with you. I think Bahrain last week will probably go down as one of the best races we have ever had in this league. It was just absolutely awesome to watch, and as you said, with the characteristics of this track, we will likely see a lot more overtaking, and again, crucially, the strategy is finely poised.
Yes, absolutely. I think in terms of the strategy, just like Bahrain, very abrasive track this one. I think given the amount of races we've seen on this game, I'd be very surprised if the drivers will be going for the ultra softs unless they just want the glory of pole position, because it seems to me that the soft to medium strategy is the one to go on if we get a completely dry race.
Definitely. Again, this track, like Bahrain, is famed for its high tyre wear. This one's slightly more front limited as well as just rear limited, so that's there to add into the equation as well, and it's just an absolutely awesome occasion to be here once again. So hopefully we have an incredible race to match. You can see the track records at the moment. Our current AOR track pole record is a 31.3. We're expecting pole, if you go on the ultra softs, to be a lot faster than that, and we could see, like Bahrain, another AOR track record tonight, which would be a pretty special occasion.
Yes, well, it was Epic Gamer who set that scintillating lap at Bahrain last week, but unfortunately it didn't work out for him in the end because his tyres went heartbreakingly so on the final lap, which denied him what would have been a great podium. And it was in the end NTG Freak who took the victory at Bahrain, and looking like one of the title contenders early on in the season.
Taking a look at that track, you can see the main overtaking opportunities you have are down into the turn 14 hairpin, which is after what I think is probably one of the longest straights in Formula 1, probably up there with Mexico, I would imagine. So now let's actually get into qualifying and see what we are going to have unfold before our eyes this evening. I would imagine probably we will see most people going on the soft, so maybe not too much action in the early parts of this session.
Yes, and I think there's quite a lot of drivers out there on the ultra softs, but I think we could see some kidology from some of the drivers. I think they'll, go out on a fast lap on the ultras, trying to tempt some other drivers into doing so, and then peeling off back into the pit lane to put some softs on. You only get one set of soft tires, so you have to be careful when you time to use them. So, I mean, it is possible to do ultras to mediums in terms of the strategy if it's a full dry race, but your performance in terms of the mediums will not be that great at the end of the race, and you may be vulnerable to those on the alternate strategy.
And the ultra softs as well, we should probably point out, are almost just a qualifying tyre. They are 2 steps softer than the middle compound of tyre, the soft, so there is a huge performance difference between the two of them in qualifying, but then in the race the ultra softs drop off like no tomorrow, and their pace will just disappear straight out the window pretty much from laps maybe even 2 or 3, so I imagine almost everyone's going to be going for the softs.
Well, goodness me, though. Look at that, Ali. 129 straight away.
Wow. Well, talk about putting all your eggs in one basket. Going out for a lap on the ultra soft tyres this early on in qualifying is a big call, and well, it looks like a lot of drivers are doing it actually. We have both McLarens and the Williams and Ollie as well, all setting blistering lap times this early on in the session, and I doubt they'll be able to beat them on the soft, so they are all already committing to the ultra softs.
Yes, well, maybe this is why we're in the commentary box and they're on the racetrack. What do we know? But yeah, no, the scintillating time straight away, and it's a McLaren 1-2 at the moment.
Yeah, very impressive lap times for both of the McLarens, who, if we can note one thing from the start of this season, it is that both of the McLarens are rapid in qualifying. And Michael actually is our championship leader after two very strong performances in the opening two races, winning in Australia and then a slightly more mature performance in Bahrain, fighting with a lot of other drivers, managing to keep it clean and come away with a good result as well. And it's probably slightly surprising to some drivers to see him emerge as the early favourite here.
Yes, well, I think, Michael's always shown he's had good speed and good racecraft, but he's really stepped up a level so far. As but yeah, the Toro Rosso driver Clarkey 110 up into second at the moment, so splitting the two McLarens.
Clarkey, a bit of a veteran of the league, he joined way back in season 12, so he has done many races, and he's always been a very quick and slightly underrated driver. I believe he's only ever picked up one victory, and that was actually quite recently, but he probably is one of the few that doesn't get as much praise as he should do for his performances. He's been a very solid midfield and at times very much pushing the front runners in this league for a number of years now.
Yes, completely agree with that, and I think he'll be very pleased with his opening run. Of course, the 18-minute qualifying session does allow them to do more runs than they would have done on the previous game. So, well, I mean, if they're already doing mid-29 times, I mean, they could be going all the way to the verge of the 128, would just be, to me, startling.
I think pole that we saw in the Xbox Oceania League this morning was, I want to say 29.8. Don't quote me on that one, but I imagine that's what it was. And I thought we've already smashed that out the park with a 29.6, and it's only going to get faster between now and the end of the session, because I think some of these drivers may have gone for the softer tyre allocation from the screen that you get before loading into qualifying, and could end up with 3 sets of Ultra Softs to go for 3 runs in this session, which could mean that they are going even faster than this.
Yes, well, I think looking at the top 7, I would say those Ultra Soft times are representative. Cass, bit of a question mark on that, might be able to go faster. But I think everyone below Cass, I think those are not representative Ultra Soft times.
No, I would completely agree, and I think they're doing what we saw in Bahrain last time out, where they go out and set, I don't want to say a banker lap, because it won't count for anything in the end, but they go and set a slow lap on the Ultra Soft tyres so that they have a delta for when they do their soft tyre run, also just to try and keep in the rhythm of driving, because all the drivers, I'm sure, will have been practicing qualifying right up till the very last minute here, and they will probably not want to lose that, because if you sit in the garage for 18 minutes waiting for the best moment to use the soft tyres, you are going to be quite rusty when you go out on those softs, and obviously much more likely to make a mistake. So there is a lot of logic to be applied there.
Yes, completely. And I think if you're going to be on the softs, I think it is a good thing to go out on a set of Ultras, even if you're not setting a time, just to get a feel of the track. I mean, it's blazing sunshine, so tyre temperature shouldn't be an issue at all.
And I imagine that with people not setting representative times on the Ultras, or at least some of them not setting representative times on the Ultras, that they are pretty convinced that the start of the race at least will be dry as well, which is quite a big indicator for what might happen. So they are probably all committing to dry strategies here.
Yes, I think so. I mean, if they're going to be on the Ultras, they're going to have to do a bit of time management, because some of them might, destroy those Ultras in a matter of laps.
Yeah, we expect the Ultra Soft pit window to be laps 5 or 6 maybe at a push, but those Ultra Softs are going to be crying enough by the time we get to that lap tally. Even though it doesn't sound like much, is quite a lot for the soft tyres to handle, really. So I imagine that it's going to be an incredibly difficult strategy to try and pull off an Ultra Soft medium, and even if you do that, will you be able to compete with the soft runners? It's difficult to say, but again, like Bahrain, we have the situation where we have to go for a trade-off between track position and strategy, which is which is the same with a lot of races, really. But I think the difference between this and Bahrain is that the strategy is a lot more set here. It's much more marginal whether you can actually get the ultra softs to mediums to work, whereas clearly in Bahrain, super soft to medium was quite a viable strategy. We'll have to wait and see here.
Yes, absolutely. Well, all of the top 7 coming back out on ultra softs. Cass and Jay Fornest in the pits, but they have put on the soft tyres, so they'll be coming out soon to attempt to do a run there. The only other driver who's fitted softs at the moment is FTR Danny MG.
Interesting. we'll have to wait and see what tyres people go for eventually. But like you said, I believe just like you, the top 7, probably even the top 8, are committed to this ultra soft strategy, as Epic Gamer goes provisional pole again for the second week in a row with a 29.4. This is the man who smashed qualifying out of the park in Bahrain with the fastest time across all 3 of the platforms, with I think it was a 25.2 in the end, which is just an unreal time, and he is already setting the benchmark early on in this qualifying session as well.
Yes, I mean, his one lap pace, as seen in Bahrain, was absolutely incredible, and again, he's putting a marker down. I mean, on this particular game, given the change for the error rules for the F1 2019 season, there could be lap records that may never be beaten for a very long time.
And that would be an incredibly prestigious thing to have maybe the lap records from this season lasting the entirety of AOR's history on the next few games or whatever. It could be years and years and years before we see these lap records broken. Let's ride on board with Ollie as he goes up to the line, and he goes provisionally P3, which is a much better provisional qualifying than we saw from him in Australia, where he found himself all the way down in P11, which was a little bit of a strange one. He picked himself up in Bahrain, and it looks like he's doing exactly the same again here.
Yes, absolutely. It's incredibly tight between the top 6. Less than half a second, but here comes Michael again.
Up to the line, and Michael can't quite match his teammate. As while we were looking at Ollie, Flores has managed to put it on provisional pole position, and he, like Michael, was on stunning form in Australia qualifying, and it looks like we have more of the same from the 2 McLarens, who go 1 and 2 again in this qualifying session.
Yeah, I mean, this has potential to be one of the most closely fought qualifying sessions I've ever seen, because they are just putting everything on the line at the moment. The cars, all of the top 7 I've seen on boards, I mean, their cars look so stable, so finely balanced. This is why these times are just tumbling so quickly, and we've still got plenty of track evolution to come.
Could we even maybe see a 28? I know that's a lot to ask, but with track evolution the way it is, and with people just throwing everything at the final lap in qualifying, having already put in a decent banker earlier on in the session, is that too much to ask? I mean, it's been so long since I've raced competitively on these games, so I can't really say what a good lap would be, but I imagine 28s would be almost like the holy grail.
Yes, well, you know, I might get out of my seat and salute it if we see a 128 in this session, but they're not far off. But yeah, at the moment, McLaren, you know, just calming things down a bit. They're both in the top 2 positions at the moment, but you know, I mean, the end of this qualifying session, I mean, it'll go to the last seconds, I think.
I agree. And this is, I think, for the drivers, the most nervy part of qualifying throughout the entire session, because there is so much riding on your last run, and you know that. You know full well what is riding on your last run. And even if you have a strong banker lap behind you already, you probably know at this point that you need, you know what the other drivers are capable of, having practiced with them throughout the week, and you know what you need to produce on the final lap to get the position you want. And we've seen in the last 2 races that qualifying gets turned upside down in the last few minutes. Anyone is capable of anything, and you could see anyone on pole or anyone in the top 5, and I think we're probably going to see more of the same here in the last 5 minutes.
Yes, but now we are finally getting some movement from the soft runners. And Freak and Danny MG are coming out onto the soft, so it's going to be very interesting to see how close they can get to the ultra times. But given it's 2 steps down, it's going to be a tall order for them to even get into the top 10.
It is indeed. It's also a little bit odd to see them coming out for the first time in this qualifying session. We mentioned the tactic that a lot of people use of going out on the faster tyre earlier in the session and getting some laps in just as a bit of practice, but these guys I don't believe have done that, because they're still down in 19th and 20th. But Freak is your winner from last time out in Bahrain. He's currently sat P2 in the championship, only 6 points behind the McLaren of Michael, and we actually saw him win in Bahrain with a similar kind of strategy from qualifying on the soft tyres. After Flores crashed, he was the highest soft runner in the race, and that ended up winning him the race. So let's ride on board with the Mercedes of Freak then on the soft compound tyres, the middle compound for this weekend, as he goes into turn 1, slightly wide of the apex, but very, very smooth, just gently caressing the car into the apex of turn 2. And that all looks very nice indeed. Going down to first gear for a split second before short shifting up into third. A little bit of oversteer on the exit, but again, that looked very nice to me. And then into turn 6, one of the most difficult braking zones on the calendar. For some reason, that corner just invites your front tyres to lock up. Negotiated very, very well by the Mercedes though, and it looks like He's on for what is at this point a pretty decent lap as he goes through the sweepers of turns 7 and 8, and I think this is probably where the soft tyres will probably be feeling the pain the most compared to the ultra softs. Let's see how he manages to cope with that. A little bit of understeer, having to use second gear there. Not ideal through that. He's run very wide as well. Surely that's got to be an invalidation, you would imagine. He was almost a car length and a half off the end of the track, which is pushing the limits to say the least as he gets through this next turn 13, which we think is probably one of the most important corners on the entire track. It just invites you to push out wide and lose all the time you've gained throughout the lap on this back straight, but now he has all this time to think about the braking point for another incredibly important corner, the turn 14 hairpin.
Yes, I mean, this is the most important braking zone on the track. It's going to be so many places won and lost here. Yes, I think if we have a look at the tyre info, if you put that up, we can see what the final order will be, because Freak will be the first driver to set a time on the softs. Here he comes.
There's Freak up to the line. What is it going to be? It's 11th place with a 30.7, which on the soft is a very strong lap time, but is not going to be good enough to get him particularly high up the order. So he has very much gone in the camp of, I want the best strategy. I'm not that bothered about where I'm starting this race. He's clearly convinced that the softs are the best tyres to start on, and he will have free choice of tyres for the race, which could be crucial. So as we go into the final 2.5 minutes of qualifying, let's ride on board into turn 1 with Williams Alex, who actually had a shocking race last time out in Bahrain, starting last, finishing P11 in the end, which looked like a decent drive, but not what you would expect from a reigning champion after he drove so impressively in Australia as well to come home in P2. So he finds himself a little way off in the championship already. So having committed to this ultra soft strategy, he needs to make this work and get as much track position as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. This is crunch time now. The two McLaren drivers both starting their final laps. Well, actually, Michael is actually behind Flores on track, but I don't think he's going to be close enough to get a tow, unless, of course, Flores makes a real hash in the opening 2 sectors. But Epic Gamer is warming up as well. And then Alex is going to be coming in as well. I think Alex is actually ahead of both McLaren, so he's going to be finishing his final run first, I believe. Because I don't think any of these drivers will be doing 2 runs on these ultras. There's just not the tyre life in them to do so.
Even something like track position could be crucial as we go into the final few moments of this session. Even the slightest variable can have the biggest impact on your qualifying lap. If one car gets in your eye line in a braking zone, like that Toro Rosso is for Synthetic into turn 14, it can, or Renault even, as I should say, it is so distracting and completely puts you off, and the slightest things like that can make the difference. So let's ride on board with Synthetic through the final corner. What is it going to be? Up to the line. He's the first man to finish his final run on the ultra soft tyres. Can he put it on pole? No! He is provisionally P2, which is huge. Let's go on board with Flores. He's currently on provisional pole. Synthetic has split the 2 McLarens, which is a stunning lap, but let's see what the 2 McLarens can do in response. Flores still has provisional pole. He has so much traffic coming into turn 14. There are cars everywhere just inviting him to make a mistake. He's actually turned down the ERS a little bit, interestingly. That is a very interesting tactic indeed as he powers out of turn 14. Danny retires from the session, but let's stay concentrated on these 2 McLarens. Flores up to the line. He's run very wide. Could that maybe have been an invalidation? Is he going to improve? He is. It's a 29-2 in the end. Let's go on board with Michael. Can he compete with his teammate? Let's see. No, he cannot quite. He's just behind. Just behind. I think he's less than a 10th behind his teammate. And it looks like we're going to have another McLaren front row lockout.
Here comes Epic Gamer, though.
Around the final corner, what can Epic Gamer do? Ollie retires from the session. He's put himself P4. Can Epic Gamer challenge the 2 McLarens? No, he can't. He has set, though, exactly the same time as Williams Alex in P3 to the 1,000th of a second, and he will be kicking himself that he set that time just a few moments later now.
Yes, I'm not sure there's anyone else who can threaten the 2 McLarens, although Williams Nervo is heading into... Oh, he's gone so deep into the hairpin, though, so no, that's going to be a scrub time for him. So the top 10 currently all on ultras. I do believe no one's been able to breach that with the softs. So fresh tyres for those outside the top 10, but nobody on the alternate strategy inside the top 10.
That is very interesting to see, actually. But I think Danny is probably still pretty... Or not Danny even, sorry. Freak is still probably very well placed in P12 with free tyre choice. Not only has he... will he have free tyre choice, he'll have fresh tyres compared to the top 10, and he's really not that far behind. So if he can just keep it clean on the opening lap, which at China is sometimes easier said than done with the snail section and the kind of concertina effect you can get through the opening few corners, I think he's still in an incredibly good position to challenge in this race.
Yes, absolutely. Don't discount. Although actually, Jono actually just went faster than Freak on the soft, so he seems like he's got the best soft time out there, which in the end was 1.3 seconds off the pole time. So that's quite a gulfing difference, as you would expect between the two compounds.
As Nardi actually still goes faster even at this late stage of the session and puts himself up into P6 ahead of Veloce Oli D, who's found himself now down in P7, which might be a little bit disappointing for him. I hadn't actually realised people had started their laps so late. They have left themselves absolutely no margin for error, but for Nardi it has paid dividends, and the same for Curly actually, who I hadn't noticed to put himself up into P5. So the grid order is a little bit different to what it looked like it was going to be, but still we are going to have that McLaren front row lockout.
Yes, I mean, Flores has looked quick since the start of the season, but both Australia and at Bahrain, he just sort of lost his head a little bit. Got so many penalties in Australia, and then of course, down at Bahrain last week, you know, he got caught up in that mad 10-car scramble where he was just sort of desperately defending or trying to defend everything, and in the end, he finished really well down the order. So this is the race where really he's in pole position. He's got to try and get it right and get some good points today.
We've just got to see a little bit more composure really from Flores. He clearly has the pace, and at times he has shown that he really does have the racecraft as well. But there are just silly mistakes creeping in here and there, like he crashed with Big C in Bahrain, and that gave him wing damage when he was the highest soft runner in the field. And had he been able to compete with Freak later in the race, who he had track position advantage over at the time, he probably would have won that race, or at least had a very good chance of doing so. And then in Australia, you saw him pick up endless time penalties, which in the end cost him a very good result and cost him a podium, having run there the entire race and having picked up pole position as well. So Flores is a bit of an enigma. You never really know what you're going to get, but you always know he's going to be fast.
Yeah, completely agree. There's rumours that we may be getting some rain later on in the race, but we'll have to see if that figures out. Rain quite common in China, of course. But yeah, it's looking good for McLaren at the moment, but you know, it's so close to the top 7. You know, the likes of AliK, Epic, they'll be challenging the McLarens from the start, I'm sure.
And just like Bahrain, it is so finely poised between the two different strategies going into the race. And again, I think we're going to see them come together right at the end and give us, hopefully, another stunning race. And we have, well, a really quite mixed up grid in the end. So if you want to run us through the order, Mark.
Yeah, so Flores takes pole position, then joining on the front row is Michael. Then on row 2 we have Alex and Epic Gamer, and then Curly Whirly with his best qualifying of the season so far in 5th. Then Williams, Nardi in 6th. Then row 4 we have Ollie D and Clarkey 7th and 8th, and then Nervo and Alberto make up row 5. Then outside the top 10 we have Cass and Big C, and then Jono Racing and Freak, last week's winner, in 14th. Then Deagle, Danny G, Palm, Alex, and at the back of the grid we have RC Alonso and J Form for the Sauber team.
And actually, Freak has been pushed down a lot further than I thought he was going to be, as Big C has snuck in front of him, and Yana Racing as well, who have found themselves in very handy positions for the race. And we've always said that Big C was good at picking the right strategy, knowing what strategy to go with, and staying out of trouble. So again, I think he could come into contention quite strongly later in this race if he could stay out of trouble on lap 1, which again sometimes is easier said than done. But if there is going to be rain later in the race, we could potentially be seeing a repeat of what happened a long time ago now in season 13 on F1 2016, where those who started outside the top 10 on the medium tyres and were able to take them to the time where the crossover period to intermediate tyres were able to pick up a lot of positions and a lot of free time and have, in the end, very good races. So it just throws in another strategic element.
Yes, and I can see that being a similar case here. The Ultra Softs are a qualifying tyre, as we've talked about earlier on. They're not going to be lasting too long. But another factor here is, you know, it's only 265 meters from the start finish to turn 1, and this is one of those corners where there's such a big concertina effect. You have to be so careful on the brakes not to hit the car in front of you and damage your wing.
Yeah, it's not really a braking zone into turn 1, which sometimes can cause a lot of problems, and it's quite easy to get pushed out as well. With the cars on full fuel and a lot of these drivers running very rearward ballast, the car can be incredibly unsettled into turn 1 if you're on the outside, or even if you just touch the artificial grass on the outside, you could be done for and you're in a spin before you know it. And as well as that, into turns 2 and 3, the concertina effect is massive because it is the first real braking zone on the track, and you're slowing down to second, maybe even first gear for some of these drivers. So that is where you're more likely to see people losing front wings and whatnot.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you on that.
So let's just have a look at the what tyres those outside the top 10 are starting on, and every single one of them, apart from Alex in the Ferrari, has gone for the soft compound of tyre, which is actually very interesting. We're expecting soft medium, whichever way round you do it, to be the fastest strategy in this race. So they are all incredibly well set up for this race, particularly Cass and Big C and Yano, who are right on the fringes of the top 10 with a huge strategic advantage. And from probably lap 2 or 3, the soft runners are going to be faster than those on the ultra softs, whose tyres are going to be down the drain before you can get to lap 2 or 3, maybe even.
Yes, I mean, there's no doubt those in the top 10 are going to have to do some tyre saving early on just to try and eke out a couple of extra laps on these ultras. But, you know, again, there are rumours that there could be rain at the end of the race. I'm looking at the moment, though, very bright sunshine on the Shanghai skyline.
Maybe that could be one of the reasons why people are going for the softs. Perhaps the rain is scheduled to come halfway through the race and they think the softs are more than capable of getting to that distance and they won't need the mediums to get to that distance. That is still all an unknown at this point. We don't even know if it's going to rain yet. It's all an unknown. Everything is up in the air as we're about to start round number 3 of AOR Season 16 PS4 F1 for the Chinese Grand Prix. As I said in the intro, we've had some crazy races here in the past. In Season 12 with the tyre wear glitch, in Season 13 with the rain, and then back in Season 14 with Ollie D's first ever F1 victory, announcing himself on the F1 stage in his 3rd ever race in the league. I wonder if we'll see someone step up just like he did that day and provide us with a shock result and another incredible race. I have absolutely no doubt that whatever happens, we are in for some more awesome racing. So strap yourselves in, everybody. We could be in for another stunning race. Here we go then. The red lights are about to appear on the screen. We are ready to go racing in China. The 2 McLarens lock out the front row with Williams Alex and Epic Gamer just behind them. We have 5 red lights. It is lights out and away we go. On board with Flores off the line. Let's see what he can do to defend from his teammate into turn 1. He looks like he's not quite going to be alongside. He sweeps into turn 1 ahead of Michael, so Flores maintains the lead. Epic Gamer looking to try and get past Williams Alex as well into turn 2. He squeezes him out a little bit and they are still side by side. Alex will have the inside for the next part of the corner, but I think Epic Gamer will have the better traction, carrying more momentum around the outside, and he will have the move. Oh, he almost loses it on the outside curb, and now he's going to be under threat from 3 cars behind into turn 6. He goes defensive. Curly looking to the inside as well. It is 3 wide on the apex of turn 6. The Haas in the middle of a sandwich, and Curly might even get past all of them here into turn 7, and he has. Curly sweeps around the outside. Synthetic or Williams. Alex is still on the inside. Curly makes contact with him, and Alex is off the track. The Williams has one run well off the track after contact with the Ferrari. Curly still side by side with Epic Gamer, who picks up front wing damage, which is going to really hurt his race this early on. And wow, what a hectic start.
Oh, goodness me. And this has allowed the 2 McLaren drivers to scamper away, or DRS Ranger Curly. But yeah, I'm surprised it wasn't a huge shunt there, but brilliant driving from Curly just to use that line to the outside to get ahead of both Epic and Alex before there was contact between Epic and Alex.
But just look at the movement that is going on down this back straight. Curly's having to go so defensive from Epic Gamer, who I think is the one who picked up wing damage and all of that. He looks to the inside, though, potentially trying to defend from Ollie D, who has found himself 2 positions on the opening lap of this race. And you can see Williams Alex has had a terrible start. He finds himself now all the way down in P10. And something else to mention is NTG Freak on those soft compound tyres has got himself up into P9 from P14 on the grid. So he's made up 5 positions and is now the lead runner on the alternate strategy.
Yeah, no, Freak's had a really good start. Just going back to the start, Epic Gamer got a great launch, which was why he was challenging Alex into the opening set of corners. But all from there just got a bit chaotic, and Curly was a big beneficiary. You got to wonder if that incident where he made contact with Synthetic might go to the stewards.
And I think whether it goes to stewards or not, it is definitely hampering Epic Gamer in this race at this point. He's currently down in P5. He just got overtaken by Ollie into turn 1, seemingly struggling with a huge amount of understeer through the corner, and he's now looking like he's unable to keep with Ollie as well. But let's go back to the battle for the lead of this race. The 2 McLarens had a very clean getaway. Neither of them really challenged each other on the opening lap, but as we come on to lap 2, they still won't have DRS at this point in the race. But I imagine actually that Michael is still probably close enough to Flores to be able to challenge down this massive back straight into turn 14. He is very close to the back of his teammate. Let's go on board with Michael. He can see Flores right in front of him. Is he going to turn up his ERS? Is he going to put his fuel on max and see what he can do into turn 14? No, actually. He turns his ERS down, and it seems like he's content to sit behind for the moment And perhaps he is just being sensible and waiting for that DRS on the next lap.
Yes, very wise strategy for the time being. No point wasting battery. It's not an easy track to regain battery at this particular one because there's not too many heavy braking zones to recharge the battery. So as you say, I think he is just waiting for the DRS, which activates now at the beginning of lap 3.
And looking a little bit further down the order, Williams Nervo has got himself up into P5 from P9 as Epic Gamer is losing positions left, right and centre here. He's lost another one to Williams Nardi. He's potentially looking back down the inside into turn 2, but I don't think there'll be anything doing there. And I think this wing damage that we believe Epic Gamer has is really hampering him. He's just got to try and get to the pits as quickly as possible, as I think someone else picked up wing damage behind as well. I couldn't quite... Oh, the Williams in front has lost it on the exit, on the grass. It was very close, almost completely binned it there, but Epic Gamer cannot find any way through because he just doesn't have anything to fight with at this point in the race. As we're back to Alberto and NTG Freak, who has had still a very strong start to this race. He still hasn't quite improved from there. He made up a few positions on the opening lap. He's now struggling a little bit more to get past these Ultrasoft runners as Williams, Alex, carries it round the outside of the Mercedes, looking down the inside into the next corner, and he's made a stunning move through the high-speed sweepers around the outside. Freak has run very wide. That might allow the Red Bull of Deagle Killer to get involved, as well as Freak now look to the outside for this next corner. He'll have the inside for the next one, and he will have the DRS, I assume, into turn 14. I think they're all going to have DRS, actually. That might nullify the effect for all of them, as it's very, very close between all of these guys. Let's just go quickly back to the battle for the lead and see what is going on there, because I don't want to miss anything for the lead after what happened in Bahrain. So on board with Flores, and he is able to maintain the lead into turn 14. But if you look now, Curly on the pad in the Ferrari is right behind these two leaders.
Yeah, absolutely is. Freak's actually lost a couple of places in all that battling. He's down to 11th position. And, oh, Freak's got wing damage, I think. He's coming into the pit, so his alternate strategy has gone all wrong for him.
Oh dear, he's done what Flores did in Bahrain, being the lead run on the alternate strategy, looking like they're dead set to challenge for the lead of this race later on, and he's picked up wing damage. I didn't actually catch that on the stream, so I couldn't tell you how that's happened, but that's a big shame for Freak, who unfortunately has paid the price for qualifying lower down the order and choosing strategy over track position. But this train is getting very, very busy as we head into turn 6. Is Deagle Killer going to look to the inside? He is, but he's been boxed in by the Renault of Alberto as well, and now Williams Alex looking to the outside of the Renault. He made a stunning move on the Mercedes the previous lap. Can he do the same this lap? I imagine he probably can, because he will have more grip than that Renault, as now Deagle Killer tries to go around the outside. Look how much speed he's carried round the outside of the Renault, and maybe now that is the sign that the soft runners are now faster than those ultra soft drivers.
Yes, and Flores has just been overtaken.
Oh wow. Wow, we've missed another battle for the lead of the race as Michael has moved up into the lead. Let's see if Flores can have anything to say about it as we go into turn 14. Flores will have the DRS. He's got his ERS in overtake mode. Is he close enough? I'm not sure that he is. So Michael moves up into the lead of this race, and he now becomes the lead. McLaren. Flores is so late on the brakes and almost steams into the back of his teammate, as Curly now takes advantage of that, and he will be looking to the outside of the final corner. He'll go slow in, fast out, trying to get a cutback line. It's not quite worked out for him. He's run a little bit wide on the curb. Forrest has DRS, but Curly is so fast in the slipstream, finds his way to the inside, the far inside into turn 1. He will be able to make a move surely. Now, is Flores going to be able to hang around the outside? No, but he looks back to the inside for turn 2. He's got the inside for the next corner. He'll have the outside for the next one. Is there anything he can do to stop Curly getting by? I do not think there is. And Curly muscles his way up into P2 and has been an exemplary start from Curly to this race. He's just done everything right, and now he finds himself potentially challenging for the lead of this race.
Yes, well, it seems like Flores has already started to lose a lot of grip on those ultras, so I think he'll be pitting at the end of this lap. Deagle Killer then the highest running driver on the softs at the moment in P6.
Oh, Nova Tag has lost it. We went on board with him just as he lost it through the fast left-hander of turn 7, and it looks like his ultra soft tyres just gave way. There was absolutely nothing he could do. His rear tyres are probably hotter than the sun at the moment. You can see he's just drifting through every corner, and it is time for him to come into the pits as that Force India of Cass has to take to the grass actually to try and avoid hitting him. I'm sure he won't be best pleased about that one, but Nervo at the moment is all over the place, and I imagine everyone else's ultra softs may be feeling a bit of the same as Danny gets down the inside of Cass, and he's now down the inside of Nervo as well into turn 13. What an opportunistic move. We saw him go around the outside of 3 cars at turn 1 in Bahrain. He's made a move on 2 cars now as well.
Oh, goodness me. Nervo's lost 5 places in the space of a sector.
Wow. his tyres have really just hit the cliff. Like, used to be a phrase with the old Pirellis back in 2012 and 13 and whatever, and it appears that they are the same now, as we have Floris and Ollie into the pits here. They have pitted earlier than Curly and Michael, and I think that undercut is going to give them a huge advantage. The Ultrasofts clearly, at this point in the race, just cannot compete.
No, not anymore, but I have to say I'm really impressed with Michael so far. In stark contrast to what we saw from Nervo, his tyres look pretty good considering they're the Ultras and they're used as well. And he's easily eking out a good gap to Curly behind.
Michael, you have to say as well, has been running in clean air since he overtook Floris. That might be part of the reason why his tyres are in better shape than the others, but he also seems to be managing this race very intelligently. As we ride on board with him, he's got Curly held at arm's length really, with 1.8 seconds gap between the two of them, and he has 85% battery to use before we've even got to the back straight. So he seems to be completely on top of things. So let's go on board with Curly, and he's yellow on fuel and also has about half the ERS that Michael does as well.
Yes, absolutely. So in terms of those in the top 10, there's only three Ultrasoft runners left. That's being the top two, and Alex in fifth, who's kind of recovered his composure a little bit since that contact with Curly.
He has indeed. I don't think that looked entirely like his fault. It seemed to be just a bit of a racing incident like you see so many times in league racing. Two people going for the same bit of track. It doesn't always work out that well, but he seems to be recovering fairly well. He is now at a pretty big disadvantage though to those other Ultrasoft runners right at the front who started on the same tyre as he did with pretty much the same wear as he did. So it might be a little bit difficult for him now to challenge for the lead of this race, because it might, well, it's cost him the track position advantage that he gained in qualifying ahead of the soft tyre runners, as both Curly and Michael come into the pits here, and that promotes Deagle Killer into the lead of this race, followed closely by Jarno. So let's go on board with Michael as he comes into the McLaren pit box. He's going obviously for the medium tyres. He gets out very quickly in a very slick stop from the McLaren boys. Let's see where Michael comes out and where Curly comes out in relation to the other two leaders who pitted previously. And I think Michael still has the net lead of this race as Floris sweeps past Curly into turn one. But interestingly, Floris is on the soft compound tyres.
Yes, I noticed that. Now, is that a sign we could get some rain later on? Because I tell you what, if the rain doesn't come in this race, Floris will more than likely have to pit again.
And that seems like a crazy decision, trying to go for a two-stop strategy rather than the one-stop. Or maybe he feels that the one-stop for him just isn't a viable strategy. He just can't get the tyre wear. As we saw both Curly and Ollie drift it beautifully out of turn 6. That was such a nice camera angle to watch that one from. So we think the net lead at the moment is with VGIA Michael, your current championship leader, by 6 points. And he seems to be in pretty good stead for this race with lap fresher tyres than his teammate, who is on some very strange alternate strategy.
Yes, although there are clouds gathering in the distance, it's not blue skies anymore. And as Jarno closes in on Deagle Killer for the lead right now, if we do get rain at some point in the next 10 laps, then Alex in 8th place, if he can outlast the soft runners ahead of him, he could be in position to be the surprise leader of the race.
He could indeed, as the two McLarens are now going side by side into the turn 14 hairpin. I don't think Michael is going to fight that one bit. I think he realises that his fight in this race is no longer with Floris. So Floris moves himself up into P9, but he's got a lot of work to do if he wants to make that soft tyre strategy work. Unless he knows something that we don't, and he thinks he can take those soft tyres to a potential rain period coming later in the race, he has got a lot of work on his hands to get a good result here as he sets the fastest lap of this race as we start lap 8 here.
Yeah, so I mean, there was no point for Michael fighting that. You know, he's got a longer stint to do on those mediums, but he's got to keep in touch with Floris just in case we do get rain. And I tell you what, there seems to be a few more shadows on these cars. It's certainly starting to get a bit darker, Ali.
I would agree. I would agree. The track definitely the circuit itself definitely looks in a lot worse condition weather-wise than when we started this race. We started under bright skies and sunshine, and the Shanghai smog is certainly gathering a little bit here as we're coming on to we're about to start the 9th lap of this race on board with the two leaders here, and Jarno's been sat behind Deagle for a fair few laps here. Let's go on board with Jarno in the Force India, who had a bit of an eventful race in that midfield scrap in Bahrain. Is he now close enough to challenge the Red Bull for potentially the net lead of this race if these two soft compound tyre runners can make their strategy work? And no, he's not. He's actually running no ERS at all and choosing to save his deployment for other points in the lap, which is very interesting indeed.
Yes, well, I think he's trying to force Deagle into a mistake out of turn 13 and 12, which is just before that 1 kilometre back straight, and then use his battery then. but now he's put it back up to 3, so maybe he's trying to catch Deagle off guard into the opening section of corners.
Maybe he is, as Tim Palm is the first driver on the soft compound tyres to come into the pit lane, which is potentially a big call, because, no, actually maybe it's a sign for all the other soft runners that now is the time to pit. Maybe that's the time to show us that the soft compound tyres are starting to feel a bit worse for wear, and it's time for the mediums.
It's very early for the soft to say. I mean, from what I know, they go at least 10 laps before they start really falling off, so it remains to be seen. What's he pitted for? He's pitted for a set of mediums, so I don't think this is a strategical. I think he generally had that bad tyre where he had to pit.
Well, you would imagine he can get to the end, because the super soft runners, or the ultra soft runners even, felt that they could get to the end from lap 5 or 6, but on the medium tyres. So you would assume that from lap 8, he would be comfortable getting to the end on a set of mediums, but it's just whether, has he now lost almost all of the advantage he gained by starting on the soft compound tyres by pitting so early, and now he's going to have tyres that are almost as worn as the ultra soft runners who qualified on those tyres and pitted much earlier on in this race. So let's go back to the battle for the lead of this race. We are on board with the Force India of Yano Racing on the back of the Red Bull of Deagle Killer. Both of these guys on the same strategy, but again, Yano doesn't even attempt an overtake, running no ERS on the straights, and he's just content to sit behind Deagle Killer.
Yes, absolutely. I think saving battery for later on, but yeah, I don't know if there is rain. I don't think it's going to be for a while yet. It's still pretty bright out there. Not as bright as it was earlier, but you know, Michael, he's doing a good job. Just sort of keep him out. Oh, actually, Yano now challenging Deagle, and he's just got past him.
A slips past down the inside into turn 1. So Yano Racing claims the lead of this race from Deagle Killer, having been sat behind for pretty much the entirety of this race so far. And can Deagle now respond? Yano is probably in a very good position, both tyre wear, fuel and ERS management wise, because he's been sat behind and able to use the slipstream and the DRS for so long. He is probably now in a very good place compared to Deagle Killer. Let's just check. Yeah, he has almost double the battery that the Red Bull has, and that could be crucial later in this race.
Yeah, it certainly will be. The two McLarens are rapidly catching the medium running Alex, but I just don't know. I think Flores, I think his engineer were having a few words after the race. Rain doesn't come because those softs will not go to the end of the race. There just simply is no way they can. So the rain's got to come for him. Otherwise, he's probably going to finish outside the points, to be honest.
Which again would be another fairly disappointing race for him, given the pace that he showed in qualifying and probably in practice as well. He does seem to be a very quick driver, but he's just lacking a little bit of what makes you successful in league racing sometimes, which is more than just raw pace. You have to rely on strategy, on racecraft, on sometimes just a little bit of luck as well. And well, everything seems to be against him at this point, but we won't pass judgment just yet. We'll wait and see what happens later on in this race. So let's just run you through the top 6 then. We are a little bit mixed up in the order due to the strategic variations we've had going on in this race so far. So it is Yano Racing who's currently in the lead, from Deagle Killer in second, as Danny and Cass are promoted because Alonso has come into the pits from I think that was 3 provisionally. Promotes Big C up into P5, and Alex on the medium tyres up into P6 as well, which could be quite big. He's quite a long way behind the leaders, but I don't think he's by any means out of contention for a potential podium, and maybe even more if the rain comes a little bit, if the rain comes firstly, and then secondly if it comes at a good time for him. And as you said, they are being rapidly caught by the two McLarens of Flores and Michael, who had, well, they locked out the front row in qualifying, and although appeared now to be on fairly different strategies, and we cannot quite work out whether Flores has made a massive great strategy call or a huge strategic blunder. We'll have to wait and see. They are followed by Curly and Veloce Olid, who are, well, they were the P1 to 4 at the start of this race, and because of the different strategies we have going on, they have found themselves a little way down the order.
Absolutely, yeah, they're all playing out at the moment. Alex, the mediums on his car now coming in the ascendancy because he's really taken a lot of time out of Big C in 5th, so I think he'll be challenging the Torosso 4 position on that main straight in just a few moments.
A very measured drive from Alex is, I think, the way we describe this one, as he appears like he will, as you say, catch Big C and overtake him on this straight. Maybe the mediums are the way to go, or they were the way to go to start on in this race. I don't think Big C is going to fight it at all. I think he realises that his tyres are in no state to fight with Alex whatsoever at this point in the race, and Alex actually was the only person outside the top 10 to start on the medium tyres, and it looks like that's paying dividends at the moment.
Yeah, so if there is rain, he may as well just keep going as long as he can, and because if he can get you know, if the rain can come for him, and he's in great position for at least something in the top 2.
As Deagle actually pits from P2 in this race. So we are on to lap 12, and the second highest soft runner has pitted for the medium tyres. So how is Jarno now going to respond to that? Those soft tyres probably don't have a lot left to fight with, but he's got to find something if he wants to keep the lead of this race.
Yes, well, Jarno's going to have to pit very soon. I think the lifespan of the softs, it is around between 11 to 13 laps before they really fall off. So Jarno's not going to have much time left, and you know, it's certainly getting darker. I mean, the skies are filling with clouds, but again, it could be right at the end of the race, so it may not favour any of them in the end, except for Michael, of course. Those on the mediums, they look in good shape at the moment.
I would have to agree with that. As if we look on board with Deagle Killer, he's actually just come out ahead of NTG Freak and Williams Alex, and on 8th lap fresher tyres than that Mercedes behind him, who I think is probably going to struggle to get to the end of this race on those tyres. If you remember, he pitted very early on because of that wing damage. He was running up in P9 on the softs at the start of the race, which was looking in a very strong position for him, and unfortunately it hasn't quite worked out in the same way that it did in Bahrain. So let's go on board with the second Mercedes then of NTG Freak into turn 14. He's not turned up his ERS, so he's not going to look for a move here. Maybe potentially looking for a move into turn 1. On my screen it's showing he's on the soft tyres, but then on this telemetry showing he's on the mediums, but I would assume he is probably on the medium tyres. That would make a bit more sense, but whether he can get those to the end or not is another question. But another question for now is, can he challenge Deagle Killer into turn 1? And it looks like he is not going to do so. So let's go on board with Deagle. Jarno comes out the pits now. He's pitted from the lead of this race, and he stays ahead of Deagle Killer, and I think now Jarno is in a great position to challenge for the victory here.
Yes, although the medium runners ahead of him, they won't be pitting again except for Curly. Sorry, not Curly, Alex, of course. So, yeah, Jarno's in a good position for points. I wouldn't say the race win just yet. He's going to be under pressure from Deagle, though. As
Deagle looked down the inside into turn 6, he came from a long way back. It looked like a very optimistic move there, not one that he probably was looking to make. As he looks down the inside into turn 7, that's very aggressive. He's just showing his nose at every opportunity here. It must be so frustrating for Jarno, who's just come out of those pits on those stone cold medium tyres. He needs a few corners to get them heated up and get back up to speed, and he is just being harried like no tomorrow by Deagle Killer in that Red Bull, who is putting him under all kinds of pressure. He's almost going to run into the back of him there as we're about to go through the right-hander of turn 13, and I think Deagle is finally positioned here to challenge for what might be a, well, I say net lead of this race. That's a bit optimistic, but this position is definitely going to be higher by the end of this race. They're on so much fresher tyres than everybody else in front of them. Deagle, he's running out of ERS almost into turn 14. He's got to send it down the inside. He tries, but there's just nothing there. Nothing doing for the Red Bull, as Jarno was late enough on the brakes to defend, and it's still Jarno ahead of Deagle Killer.
Yep, and the McLarens have now caught up to the back of Alex's Ferrari, so we're going to get a three-way fight for the lead right now, although Alex out of position, unless, of course, we get some rain.
Indeed, and Flores on those soft tyres is now probably feeling the effects of some significant tyre wear, so maybe at this point Michael's tyres are potentially even in a better place than his are, even though they are a compound softer. But I think we haven't really given enough praise to Michael at this point for his drive up to now in this race. He has managed to stay within a second of Flores on the faster compound of tyres, and he's very intelligently used him just to drag him up the road, use the DRS, use the slipstream, and just be pulled along by his teammate. And he's done that, I think, to this point, to perfection.
Yeah, Michael has played a really good strategic game so far, but it could all be for nothing if we get rain very soon. But I'm not sure that's going to come anytime soon. And Flores is really getting boxed in by this Ferrari, losing time to his teammate behind.
And both of these McLarens really have to try and clear this Ferrari right now. They cannot risk to lose any more time to Curly and Veloce Olid, who are directly behind them. Let's go on board with Alex, who isn't really going to fight Flores into turn 14. Flores has turned his battery up to full. Is Michael going to try and follow him through? No, he's not. He's being very, very passive at this point in the race, not wanting to risk anything. Let's see if he tries to make a move into turn 1. It'll be a little bit more difficult, as Alex will have the DRS and the slipstream from his McLaren teammate in front. But can Michael do anything then into turn 1? He's got to try and clear this Ferrari Ferrari as quickly as possible. He will have so much more grip on like 6 or 7 lap fresher tyres than the Ferrari, and he will easily slip up the inside into turn 1. Alex is still on the outside for now, but doesn't have the grip to fight that at all. So we are back to, as we started, a McLaren 1-2, but I don't think at this point in the race it is going to stay like that.
Yeah, Michael's definitely now looking to put more pressure on Flores to make that tyre wear even worse. Flores has now done 9 laps on those softs. He'll be begging, he'll be doing every rain dance he can possibly think of in his cockpit. But I just think it's gone wrong for him again, but this time from a strategic point of view. He's just not able to get the full package so far. But hey, you never know with China, it could come at any time and save his blushes.
13 or so laps to go still in this race. And yeah, as you said, it is definitely not looking promising for Flores, but again, we won't pass judgment until we see the final result and see what Flores can pull out of the bag from a situation that at the moment, despite him having the lead of the race on track, it doesn't look like he'll be staying there for much longer unless, as you said, Mark, we get rain at this point, which looks highly unlikely as we are about to finish lap 15 here. Let's go on board with Ollie D as he is right behind Curly Whirly, and he has been for, well, a number of laps really. I think Curly on his 1 lap fresher tyres than Ollie has just been able to stay ahead, and Ollie hasn't really been able to get close enough to challenge for an overtake, and they're staying at about the same distance from the leaders. They have Alex between themselves and the 2 McLarens, but they still have them in their eyesight and they can see them in front of them, and they know that they know well and truly that they are there, but whether they can challenge them is another matter as Alex comes into the pits finally, and he's now going to be going on a 12 lap charge on those soft tyres.
Yeah, absolutely. A very solid first stint from Alex. He's going to be well outside the top 10 for the year. He's going to have faster tyres. So he's got the opportunity to get some positions back and get back into the points. So 10 laps now for Flores. But, you know, Michael is just saving his battery. He's had it in mode 0 for the last lap or so just to regain some battery. So he is certainly getting ready to launch an assault on his teammate.
I think Michael is very, very well placed to win this race here. Everything seems to be going right for him up to this point. He's judged everything to perfection, but we'll have to wait and see whether he can keep it that way between now and the end of this race. Obviously, there is plenty that can still happen and with Flores in front of him, really anything can happen after what we saw in Bahrain and in Australia as well. You never quite know what you're going to get with Flores, but it appears he's driving quite a measured drive today, but the strategy just up to this point hasn't quite gone right for him. I expect him to be coming into the pits probably fairly shortly. We saw the soft tyre runners earlier in this race pitting, some of them as early as lap 8, some of them as late as lap 12 or 13. So with his fresh soft tyres and with the fuel loads a little bit lighter than they were at that point in the race, maybe he's going to be pushing 13, 14 laps, but still that's not going to get him anywhere near the end of this race.
Yes, I mean, I agree with you there. The mist is now beginning to set over the Shanghai International Circuit, so I get the sense that rain isn't too far away, but it may be too late for Flores. And I think Michael is just going to play the attrition game here. Just wait until Flores' tyres fall apart completely and just get the easy overtake.
You just never know, do you, with this game? With league racing in general, anything could happen. Anything could be thrown into the mix at the last minute. We could also have a potential safety car, I think, should anyone retire further down the order, and with the field as close as it is, with several battles looking very, very close, literally anything could happen, and there could be something thrown in right at the end just to mix it up. But I do agree with you, those clouds up above the circuit do look a bit ominous now.
Yes, I think Flores has got, he's probably going to have to just try and push as far as he can, and you know, if he gets a puncher, so be it, because I think either way he's the points anyway, so you may as well gamble and try and get to that rain. I think that's his only choice now, to be honest.
Unless he knows something that we don't, he's going to have a very, very tough run into the end of this race, and maybe that's what Michael thinks as well, hence why he hasn't really been showing too much intent on challenging him. He's been very happy just to sit behind his teammate for a number of laps now. Flores is, despite being on the soft tyres, he's also on older tyres than Michael, so their tyre wear is not going to be comparable in any way. But now, Michael has turned up his ERS to max. He has put his DRS open as well. He's in the slipstream. Won't be able to make a move here. He's too far back, but maybe into turn 1.
Yes, I'm not sure there was much point putting it up to maximum mode there. He wasn't really in a position to overtake, so I think it was a waste of battery there, to be honest. But maybe into turn 1. No, again, not a great exit out of the final corner. So, yeah, Flores still doing a good job, but here comes Michael.
Into turn 1, he is still not close enough to make a move, although Flores a little bit wide of the apex. And maybe that is the first sign that his soft tyres are starting to drop off the cliff a little bit. We saw Nervo's tyres on the Ultras, admittedly, but early on in this race, his tyres just went, like someone flicked a switch, they just became completely undrivable. We haven't seen that as of yet on the soft compound tyres, but I wouldn't be surprised if Flores tries to take them too long in this race that they just drop off instantly.
Yes, or when they do, we will certainly know about it, because Flores will be dropping at least 3 positions within a few corners. But you know, Flores, I think he's, as I mentioned earlier, I think he's got no choice but just to try and eke out these tyres a bit longer and just beg and hope that rain comes.
Well, there's no way in the world he's taking them to the end of the race. Not a chance. So he's got to hope that something else happens. Otherwise, despite being in the lead on track, he is not going to be winning this race. But Michael now looks closer than he's ever been to his teammate, and surely now he's got to realise that his medium tyres are now faster than those softs, and he has to go, otherwise he risks losing more time to Curly, who is definitely closing in just a little bit, just to show Michael he's there. He's 1.8 seconds behind the second McLaren, and that gap has definitely come down a little bit over the last few laps, and that probably coincides with Flores's tyres dropping off a little bit as well.
Oh, here comes Ollie.
Down the outside, sorry, into turn 14. Couldn't make anything work there, and that is definitely going to stop Curly's halt, to halt Curly's charge even on the 2 McLarens. But let's stay on board with Ollie as he goes out of the final corner in the slipstream with the DRS. He's turned his ERS to max, but there's nothing he can do into turn 1. He is not close enough unless he tries to hug the apex and then find his way down the inside into turn 2. He's trying to look for it, but Curly hasn't really left a gap. Ollie's gone for it anyway into turn 1. They are side by side. Ollie is a little bit behind. He's about half a car length behind that Ferrari. Can he make anything work though into turn 6? Can he have a cutback line? Can he get enough slipstream and use his ERS well enough to go down the inside? No, he's turned his ERS down. He's probably looking, well, to wait for that same corner on the next lap. He couldn't quite make anything work, but if he thinks he has more pace than Curly, he has to get past as quickly as possible and then start hunting down those McLarens, whilst Michael might be a little bit compromised by having Flores in front of him.
Yes, absolutely, but Flores really struggling now for grip. He's understeered into several corners on this lap alone, but he's still able to sort of keep slightly ahead of Michael. I think he's running less wing than Michael, because the straight line speed, at least on the lead McLaren, seems to be pretty good.
As Flores actually runs a little bit deep into that corner, that's definitely going to compromise his run through turn 13. And actually, while all this is going on, would you look at Jarno in P5, who's now less than 3 seconds behind Ollie D in 4th. So he is now coming into play, being he was the lead soft runner when they all pitted for their set of medium tyres, as Michael looks down the inside into turn 14 on his teammate, and he takes the lead of this race as Flores doesn't fight it at all, and Michael reclaims the lead that Flores took away from him in the first stint, and now it looks like Michael is surely set to drive away and win this race. The others don't seem to quite have the pace to match him, but that is probably Flores out of the equation for now. Let's go on board with the 2 guys behind, and Curly is still able to maintain the lead over Ollie D. So it's all coming into play then in the final few laps of this race.
It really is. Well, Flores is going to try and do the impossible, but you know this track is covered in fog and mist now, so surely the rain is going to be coming imminently. But to be fair, if it rains, will it be enough to actually change to the inters, let alone, you know, keep going on the dries? You know, Flores is on 14 laps now on this sort, which is far more than anyone else has managed.
It is, and I don't think Flores is particularly renowned for being good on his tyres either, so he may be really struggling at this point in the race. We've had a number of warning signs. He's looked a little bit slow into some corners, and he just hasn't reacted to it. He's carried on with the soft tyre strategy, and he seems to be committed to trying to make this work in some way at this point in the race, although I think it does look a little bit like a lost cause. Now, even if it does rain between now and the end of the race, I'm not sure it'd be worth pitting for intermediate, simply because you lose 25, 28 seconds, whatever it is, in the pit lane. And would you even be able to make up that time before the end of the race? I'm not so sure. But let's stay on board with Ollie then, as he's right behind Curly. He's turned his ERS up to full. He will have the DRS, and he's got the slipstream as well, but he's not quite close enough into turn 14. He's gaining a lot actually into turn 14, but not quite close enough in the braking zone to make anything work. And Curly stays ahead for now. And again, Ollie's looking a little bit frustrated, sat behind this Ferrari for so many consecutive laps.
Yeah, the straight line speed of the Ferrari is absolutely fantastic compared to Ollie, but actually not a great exit to the final corner. This may give Ollie half a chance.
Into turn 1, he follows the Ferrari again, tries to take a slightly wider line on the entry. That gap has definitely appeared for him into turn 2, but he's not quite close enough to make it count and get down the inside of that Ferrari, and he has to sit behind again, although Curly slightly offline through turns 4 and 5. And is there going to be anything that Ollie can do into turn 6? No, he's not quite close enough. But would you look at that? Flores has dropped right off the back of Michael, and Curly is now almost within a second of that McLaren, and that's just going to make it that much more difficult for Ollie to overtake the Ferrari.
Yeah, but they're both catching both McLarens, because Michael's not exactly charged away from his teammates. So Curly and Ollie are still in with a shout of winning this race. And
maybe add into that equation as well, Jarno Racing, who's only now 2.5 seconds behind Ollie and Curly, who are on much older tyres. Jarno's on better tyres than everyone by 7 laps. So his mediums are going to be in a much better state. And would you just look at how much Flores has lost on this half a lap alone. He's now 1.4 seconds behind Michael, and he's now well within the grasp of Curly Whirly on the 21st lap of this race. He will be right on the back of that McLaren. Flores goes defensive slightly. He's weaving a little bit, potentially trying to help his teammate just by holding up the two guys who are challenging him for the lead of this race. Flores goes defensive into turn 14. Curly looks to the outside. He's much later on the brakes. He's trying to carry it all the way around the outside of Flores, who pushes him wide slightly, and this is costing them all time. But Flores defending pretty nicely in the end, quite aggressively, but I think just about within the bounds of fairness, and he's managed to keep that Ferrari behind him for one more corner. But again, I think it's a bit of a lost cause here. Him trying to defend from Curly, he pushes him aggressively to the inside. Now Flores moves back out to the outside, and Curly gets through in the end. And he's been very patient and managed to work that pretty well in the end. He goes ultra defensive as well into turn 2, as I think Ollie and Flores may have made a little bit of contact there. Let's go on board with Ollie as he looks around the outside, and Flores has spun. Flores has spun, he's hit the wall, and if his race wasn't over with that strategy call, it certainly is now.
That could be a puncher that's caused that. I'm not sure yet. And oh, wait a minute. It's actually starting to rain.
Oh wow, rain has come at the worst time for Flores. His tyres just clearly couldn't take it. He looks like he's driving on ice into turn 6. Oh, he has a puncture. Yeah, Flores has pushed those tyres too much. I think fighting with Ollie and Curly was just the final straw for those tyres. And that's it for Flores' race. Now, we said that strategy didn't look like it was going to work. And, well, it looks like we called it right in the end. So maybe we do know a thing or two about strategy. But as we're about to start lap 23 of 28 here, the top 5 is certainly coming together. The gap between Michael and Curly is 2.5 seconds, but Ollie is well within a second of Curly in front of him. And behind them, Jarno and Deagle on much faster tyres are well within a shout of pulling something off. Those tyres will be so much better in the rain. You'll definitely be able to see the difference between the two tyres. Those worn tyres of Ollie and Curly and Michael as well just will not be able to cope as well with that water and those colder track temperatures as those fresher tyres of the guys behind. And oh, this is going to be a very interesting end to this race.
Yeah, it certainly will be. But it kind of reminded me of Valtteri Bottas at Hungary in real life, where he was just put on an awful tyre strategy, but ultimately it helped his teammate win the race comfortably. And at the moment, it is working out that way for Michael, because just before his tyres blew up, it cost Curly and Ollie so much time to be stuck behind that McLaren.
Yeah, that gap was down to like 1.5 seconds, and now it's back up to 2.5 seconds. So Flores' belligerence has definitely cost Curly and Ollie quite a lot in this race, as Flores picks up a 3-second time penalty just to compile his misery in this race. Nothing has gone right for him at all since he qualified on pole position. He just hasn't been able to make it count, just like Australia and Bahrain. Mistakes have let him down. So let's just run you through the order briefly, as this race is about to be turned on its head by the rain that you can see on screen at the moment. How long are we going to have to wait till we get intermediate tyres? Who knows, but we're definitely going to be seeing some more mistakes from some of these drivers. But someone we haven't seen mistakes from all race up to this point is Michael, who is now slightly starting to extend his advantage over Curly in the lead of this race. He goes for a big drift through turn 13 though. Curly just ahead of Veloce Ollie D in P3, and Jarno Racing is now within a second of both of them. So Jarno coming into play in these conditions. I'm not sure Ollie is close enough into turn 14. He is definitely not. Let's go on board with Jarno. He isn't close enough either, but he's got the DRS now as well. But will we see anyone coming into the pits for intermediate tyres at this point? I wouldn't imagine so. I think it's a little bit too early.
Yes, maybe not yet, but the rain is coming down pretty quickly. I tell you what, if Jarno gets on the podium, he is certainly a contender for driver of the day. I mean, he's been absolutely brilliant today.
I would have to agree. As while we were talking about that, NTG Freak has snuck past Deagle Killer, who was at one point ahead of Jarno Racing on track and looking like he was in prime position to challenge for the victory here. Hasn't quite worked out for him, and he now finds himself down in P6 behind that Mercedes, having lost another position. So on lap 24, it is Michael from Curly, from Ollie, from Jarno, and this train from P2 to P4 is getting very close together. Freak and Deagle have dropped off a little bit once they started battling, but I think this is where the real fight is now in this race. But another thing to throw into the equation is, when are these guys going to pit for the intermediate tyres? At the moment, even though it's raining, even though the track looks very cold and a little bit worse for wear, it's certainly not time for intermediates just yet.
Yeah, and they're going to be all running low downforce setups. So it's going to be such a nightmare when it goes over from mediums into those inter conditions. If you're caught out, you're going to be losing, you know, a good 20 seconds a lap.
Yeah, as well as the low aero, though, I think you've got to add to that the extremely rearward ballast, which is probably the worst thing you could have in the rain. The car just wants to slide away from you at every opportunity. So let's go on board with Ollie as he has another chance to overtake Curly, but he just can't get the power down out of that final corner. Curly getting the power down much more effectively than that Mercedes. He's still going to have DRS, but at almost 7/10 back, he's not quite close enough to make any kind of move. Jarno is actually much closer to Ollie than Ollie is to Curly in front, and that could have a big effect if Ollie ends up trying to overtake Curly as he almost runs into the back of that Ferrari in the braking zone. So let's go on board with Michael. Is he going to come into the pits? No, he's not. That rain is starting to get so heavy now. You can see it settling on the halo above the driver's head as everybody comes across the line to start lap 25 here. We have 3 laps left and still nobody knows what is going to happen.
Oh, here comes Jarno. He's closer than ever. He's got much fresher tyres than the Mercedes ahead, and look how badly the Mercedes drifts to the left and nearly opens the door for Jarno.
Jarno saw a gap there. He tried to go for it. He couldn't quite find a way through. He taps the back of the Mercedes a little bit on the edges of the corner. Can Jarno do anything into turn 6? He has much better tyres than all of these guys. He's now so close to the back of Ollie D, who goes defensive into turn 6. And Jarno is so late on the brakes. He's almost missed the corner. He runs completely off the racing line. And that's exactly where you don't want to be in these conditions. And Ollie manages to maintain P3 for now.
Yeah, so I think, you know, if the other drivers cover the inside, I think sometimes it's better off just not to go too late on the brakes. You know, he's got the opportunity at DRS, but, you know, I cannot see a situation where they're not going to have to come in for inters before the ends, because the rain is coming down harder and harder. And Ollie, he's really struggling now. He's dropped off out of DRS range of Curly, so he's not going to have much to defend with. He's got far less battery than Jarno, who has managed it brilliantly.
Jarno has 90% of battery, as Ollie actually ran wide a little bit through that last sequence of corners. He's wide as well on the exit of turn 13, and surely Jarno now, as he goes for a big old drift on the exit of turn 13 into turn 14 now, will have an easy move. Surely there's nothing that Ollie can fight with. His battery's low, his tyres are gone, and the rain is not helping him one bit either. So Jarno to the outside. Ollie is later on the brakes. Is there anything the Force India can do? Yes, there is. Ollie runs off the track. He completely misjudged the braking zone, completely ran off the racing line, and Jarno is now through up into P3 as Curly pits. Michael stays out, but Curly pits as Jarno stays out as well. Ollie comes in, so we have split strategies. Oh no! As Curly picks up a 3-second time penalty coming into the pit lane.
Oh no, that's a disaster for Curly. But well, this is the critical point in the lead now. Michael, if this had been a fully dry race, he would have been home. But now, if the rain buckets it down now and they start losing a ton of time, Curly and Ollie will be in the ascendancy. And actually, on traction out of the opening set of corners, Jarno was really struggling to put down the power.
And Michael is having to be so tentative. He can't get anywhere near the apex of turn 6. He is going to be losing so much time to those intermediate runners. So let's go on board with Curly then. Let's see how he is coping with these conditions and see if he can make this undercut work. He's right behind Epic Gamer, who is struggling on those medium compound tyres, and surely Curly's going to ease past into turn 6. There is nothing for the Haas to fight with. Curly down the inside, and I think Curly now is what Ollie is more than 3 seconds behind, so maybe Curly could be in with a shout of winning this race if he can nail this intermediate lap. Let's see what Curly can do through these high-speed corners. He is going to be so much faster than those dry tyres runners. DRS has been disabled. You can see Curly has called this to perfection, and Ollie as well. They are going to be gaining heaps and heaps of time over Michael, Jarno, and Alex, and Danny, and Cass, and everyone who has decided to stay out in this race. Curly is closing so much on these 2 cars in front, and he is definitely, well, almost definitely going to have the net lead of this race. The Force India of Cass has run very wide. Curly is cutting his way through the field like a hot knife through butter, and nobody can fight him at all.
Yeah, Curly was a second quicker than Michael in sector 2. So Michael's going to be struggling on the power of the final sector, but he carries on. But I suppose with the lost time, he may as well keep going.
Oh, he's carried on. He's going to the end on this set of dry compound tyres. How many videos have you seen on YouTube of people doing dry tyres on a wet track challenge? Well, now you have someone doing it for real, fighting for victory in an AOR top tier league race, but you can just see, going on board with him, he just has no grip at all. Let's have a look at what the gap to leader is. So Curly is 20.7 seconds behind. Oh my goodness. Can he catch this?
Oh! Michael nearly oh no, it's Flores, sorry. Flores at the back of the field. Thought for a second Michael was about to bin the car, but no, he did all right actually. Yeah, if Curly can keep this pace up, he could be on the back of Michael before the end of the race.
So Curly needs to gain about 10 seconds per lap and overtake Alex and overtake Jarno and overtake Michael as well. I have a feeling that might be just a little bit too much to ask, because I'm riding on board with Jarno here. He just cannot turn in through any of these corners. The track is properly wet, and Curly already on Michael has gained 4 seconds before he's even gone into the final sector, but I think he needs to be gaining more than that. I just don't think it's enough.
Yeah, I think he'll be able to get Alex at least, and maybe Jarno, but I think Michael may have played the right call, although he's still struggling so much for traction out of the corners, and well, quite a lot of the drivers have pitted for Inters now. Danny and Big C have opted to carry on, but I think they could drop out of the top 10. But yeah, I think Michael will be just about okay.
Just about. We think the gap now needs to be about 10 seconds, and currently it's 12.7. I think it's just slightly too much, unless the track becomes even more wet over the next few laps and those dry tyres just become impossible to drive. So Michael starts the final lap of this race. Let's go on board with him on the dry tyres. The track is definitely ready for intermediates at this point. The Inters are by far the fastest compound of tyre, and surely that difference is only going to keep growing and growing almost exponentially at this point. Michael is just crawling through the snail section at turns 1 and 2. He just can't do anything on this set of tyres. He's almost half throttle on the exit. He's drifting out of there. The car looks almost undrivable. He's almost completely sideways out of the exit of turn 3, and the car just looks like it won't go in the direction that he wants. He's so wide at turn 6, and Curly's gained 3.5 seconds on the first sector alone.
Curly's got a chance. I think Curly has a chance of doing this. He was 10 seconds quicker on the previous lap. I just compared their lap times. I think Curly has half a chance of winning this race. And he has got that 3-second penalty, don't forget.
Well, maybe that won't even come into play, as he's getting past Jarno now, who looks like he is driving on ice. He was just skating everywhere and couldn't do anything. So let's stay with Curly. Oh, he's made a mistake. He's hit the grass and he's run wide, and that might be the mistake that cost him a potential victory here. The gap now between him and Michael is 4 seconds. Michael is going to be all over the place in these next few corners, but I don't think it'll be enough. Curly can see Michael in front of him. He can see Michael on those dry tyres. He's on those intermediates that are giving him so much more grip. That gap is 2.5 seconds now. Michael is drifting out of turn 13. The gap's 1.8. Curly is closing at a rate of knots. He can see that McLaren in front of him. There is nothing Michael can do. He's just got to hope he goes defensive into turn 14. He is going all over the track just to try and deter Curly from going for a move. He's going to be so slow out of the hairpin. He's missed the apex. Curly gets through at the penultimate corner of the race. He takes the lead from Michael, and Curly will cross the line to win this race, at least on track, as Michael almost loses it out of turn 14. He just about holds it together as Ollie will cross the line just behind Curly. Let's see how penalties affect this, and Ollie takes it at the death because of Curly's penalties. What a race, and Ollie, just like season 14, he grabs the win at China in adverse conditions, and nobody expected him to do it from that point in the race. Wow, what a finale.
Oh, what a finish. What a finish to this race. Oh, I feel so bad for Jarno because he had a fantastic race. He'll finish 5th though in the end, but Ollie, goodness me, he has stolen it right at the death there. Just kept in touch with Curly. That mistake that Curly made in sector 2 as he was chasing Michael, that may be what cost him. Yeah,
I think he probably would have been 3 seconds ahead of Ollie had he finished that race without making that mistake. And oh, that ifs and buts and woulda, coulda, shoulda. Curly just didn't quite have enough, and that he will be ruining that 3-second time penalty. That is what cost him in the end, and that's really got to hurt.
Oh, that will hurt, but he still had a fantastic showing today because, you know, compared to his first 2 races, where he wasn't really fighting with the podium, he's really performed well today. But, you know, Ollie Well, I'm not sure if he would have expected a win early on in the race, but he's got it right there. Well, fair play. Michael still gets another podium to start the season, but he'll be thinking, wow, how did I lose this race?
Oh, that is got to be so painful for Michael. Literally everything up to that point had gone so perfectly right for him. He'd driven the race to perfection, and we thought until the first sector of the last lap that he was nailed on to win that race. And believe me, I've been there. Nothing hurts more than losing a race that you think you should have won. So, oh, you really have to feel for him. So in the end, it was somehow Veloce Ollie D who claimed a stunning victory from 7th in the grid in crazy conditions with yet another unbelievable race with VGIA Michael, your championship leader, who I believe will keep the lead of the championship with, you've got to say, a strong P2, but probably not what he would have wanted in that race, having led for so long. Curly Whirly in a, well, you've got to say a strong P3, but so unfortunate for him to lose it, having crossed the line in first. With Deagle Killer and Yana Racing down in P5, it really looked at one point like he could come into play to fight for the lead, but he made the wrong call to stay out on the dry tyres. And then NTG Freak, Williams Alex, Nardi, RC Alonso, and then Alex rounding out the top 10. But wow, what a race. What a race.
Yeah, absolutely magnificent stuff. I think we have to mention Flores, great pole position, but once again, it's all gone terribly wrong for the Dutchman. But hopefully, he can get the experience from here and come back strong in the races, because he's certainly going to win down the line, I feel.
Yeah, it's just a matter of when, not if, for Flores. I think he clearly has the pace. He's shown us that on so many occasions already this season. It just hasn't quite gone right for him. I think today will be another learning experience, and hopefully he will apply that in future and not make the same mistake twice. But anyway, unless we're doing driver interviews, which I don't believe we are because it's not quite been set up yet logistically, I'll thank you all very, very much for watching and joining us in that race, because that was awesome. I'm so glad all of you were here to join us and witness it with us. And as always, thank you to Mark for joining me in the commentary box.
No problem. Another fabulous race from AOR.
And thank you to all of you for watching, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.